Allegiance, Mr. Lee Masters, will you lead us in that, please?
Yes, sir. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is an opportunity to enter any adjustments to the agenda that may be necessary. Do we have any? Okay, hearing none, let's move on. Any conflicts of interest that need to be disclosed tonight? And hearing none, we'll move on. This meeting is open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in and using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Do we have any public comments that have been received?
I have no written comments. Jennifer, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers.
All right. Next item that we need to discuss is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. We need a motion to approve, or if anybody sees a correction that needs to be made. If no corrections, I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, go ahead, Barry. I'll second.
Go ahead, David. I'll second
Okay.
it.
I'll move to approve.
I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Santos?
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn?
Yes.
Treasurer Janetti?
Yes.
Chairman Cooley?
Yes.
Member Lemasters?
Abstain?
Member Nuno?
Yes.
And that's it. Okay.
Okay, so then we approve those minutes dated January 10th, 2022. Next item on our agenda is the fiscal year 2022 general fund and wastewater budget to actual through January 22nd. And on the notes that you received, I believe we start with the staff report. Jennifer, are you ready to present that?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I have for you the fiscal year 22 general fund and wastewater budget to actual through January of 22. We've updated this. This is for 7 months into this fiscal year, beginning with our general fund analysis. We have 5 months of sales tax that's been received and is trending higher than budget. Our property tax and lieu of vehicle license fees are received in February. So on your other taxes line, you'll notice the actual is not within trend. That's because we haven't received the payment yet. That'll come in February, and then in March you'll see that start to trend out to what our projection is. We have increased building permit activity in comparison to prior years, while other permitting activity is lower, and that's mostly due to applying invoices directly to deposits. Franchise fees are trending lower than budget. Low rate market is continuing to keep interest earnings estimated lower than budget. However, funds have been deposited with the trustee for investment with public trust, and they will report on that quarterly. We have 15 of 26 pay periods have been reported, and costs are trending lower than budget. Our utilities are trending high. Fleet costs are trending high, mostly due to fuel costs, and contractual services are trending lower than budget. And we have paid the first quarter fire service invoice, and that invoice was $914,004. And your attachment A provides the preliminary estimates reflecting the 7 months. And on August 3rd, 2021, City Council approved a budget amendment for unspent prior year appropriations and reappropriated $214,799 for fiscal year 22. And that allows for $741,845 available funds for City Council to appropriate within this remaining fiscal year. Moving on to wastewater, we have 3 of 6 utility billings recorded and trending lower than budget. 15 of 26 pay periods recorded and costs are trending lower than budget. Utilities are same as general fund, they're trending higher, and the fuel costs as well are trending higher. And 1 of 2 debt service payments have been recorded in this fund. And your attachment B provides the preliminary estimates again for 7 months in the fiscal year. And we are projecting about $522,000 to be retained for utility reserves for fiscal year 22. And that's driven by a slight decrease in revenues, but a cost savings in personnel and operating expenses. And with that, I'll take any questions anyone has.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions. Jennifer, when we did the budget in for 2021 and 22, did we consider property taxes with all the new housing that's going up to, up at Tuckwit and up in the other end of Highland Springs there? Was that factored in, or will that be a bonus to us for property tax?
No, we always apply a growth within our estimates. We keep them conservative, but we do apply a growth in there to account for any new housing projects we know will be coming on.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Steve.
Yes.
No, I'd just like to make a quick comment in here. Jennifer, this is great, report, especially on the sales tax. And really we'll be exceeding the, our budget on this, on the revenue side. That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Probably you still have some accruals on this, for the other quarter and months and quarters on the previous months, right?
Right. Yeah. So we've only received 5 months of the sales tax, so
Wow.
we'll continue to get those payments in. They're always behind.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'll catch up, and we'll
That's-
report on those as we get them.
Great job. Thank you. Good job,
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Any other comments? I have one question, and Jennifer, maybe you can answer this. Does the city use enough fuel, gasoline in particular, to merit attempting to buy that on a bulk basis? Is it possible, has anybody considered contracting for that and locking in the price at the beginning of a period of time?
We have a fuel card that I believe has a rebate to it, but it's not based on a specific place, if that's what you're.
Yeah, my question is, and it would arise at budget time, is there anybody that would sell us gasoline and lock the price in for 6 months or a year at a time? I know that's done frequently, but I'm not sure the city uses enough gasoline to do that. And of course, that typically would require it coming from the same vendor, the same gas station, whatever. And I'm just asking if anybody's looked at that or considered it.
I can take a note and ask around, but I think sometimes it might be difficult if you have people who are traveling, maybe PD vehicles or parks and grounds that are around and have to have them go back to the same station. So that might be a little bit difficult, but I will check into that and see if anyone has a response for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One quick question, just a point of clarification. Jennifer, on that fuel cost, I'm assuming, but I don't want to assume here, is that largely or a majority of that due to inflation in the cost of fuel? Is there increased usage? Any sense of what the proportions are on that?
It would definitely be to the increased prices
Yep.
due to inflation. As we've added new vehicles, which there have been a few added this year, there would be that addition to it as well. But for the most part, I would say a lot of it has to do with the prices.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There are no other comments. I think it'd be appropriate at this point in time to ask for a motion to approve and file the attached reports.
I move.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Santos,
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn,
Yes.
Treasurer Janetti,
Yes.
Chairman Cooley,
Yes.
Member Lemasters,
Yes.
and Member Nuno.
Yes.
Okay, that moves us on to the next item on our agenda is the fiscal year 2022 general fund and wastewater budget to actual. And again, we have a staff report, and again, Jennifer's the star.
Yes, thank you. So what I have for you this evening is the PARS investment policy. As you'll remember, on December 7th, the City Council approved to establish a PARS 115 trust. And at that time, they appointed a plan administrator. And on January 18th, the City Council approved a pension funding policy and investment strategy for the PARS account. The last step to get the whole account setup process complete is the approval of the investment policy for the account. And now this is a template investment policy that's provided by PARS through our Highmark Capital Investment Management. And within this policy, it describes the scope and purpose, your investment objectives and constraints, duties and responsibilities, and acknowledgement and acceptance. And so once the policy has been approved by City Council, the funds will be moved in the account per the funding policy. Investments will be reported with the quarterly investments report that are brought forth to the Finance and Audit Committee, as well as the City Council. So with that, I'm looking for a recommendation to move forward to Council for their approval this evening.
Any questions or comments?
Yes, sir, I have one.
Sure, yes.
Thank you. So Jennifer, you mentioned that this was kind of a template that was designed by the investment company. Is there something that, or is there any changes that staff needs to make to that, or have there been some from that template? And if so, could you just point those out for just a reference for us?
Yeah, there's no changes. And again, this is a strategy choice that was approved by Council. And so this is the template that goes along with that strategy choice. It's not a custom account per se, so there's not really a lot of changes that we can make to it. It's what goes along with the fund for the investment itself for that strategy. So
Gotcha, that makes sense, okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you. That's the only question I had.
Yeah, that's kind of like my question. They started with our policy that was approved last year, and then they're adding in specifics for them on this?
This is so
Ours?
these funds have different rules because they're considered long-term investments. So their rules are they differ than what our other investment policy would say. So that's why there's a separate investment policy for these funds.
Good, thank you. That cleared it up for me. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to recommend to the City Council for approval.
I could make a motion to item number 3.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Santos,
Aye.
Councilmember Fenn,
Yes,
Treasurer Janetti,
Yes,
Chairman Cooley,
Yes.
Member LeMasters,
Yes.
and Member Nuno.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes and we'll move this on to the City Council for approval. The next thing on our agenda is our subcommittee updates. We're still working on putting some of those subcommittees together, and I think we're to the point that we need to spend a little time with those and giving some thought to what we need to be doing and what we want to accomplish. The first of those committees is the Internal Control Committee, and those members are myself and Mr. Janetti. Are there any other committee members that might be willing and able to serve on that committee? I'm not hearing a bunch of people jumping in and volunteering.
I'm able to.
and that's kind of as an ad hoc. It's
Another ad hoc.
Well, it's kind of ad hoc when we see an opportunity to maybe do an audit. It isn't like some of the other programs where there's a start and an end. We already did the one commitment on that committee last year. So it'll be the
Yes.
next item that pops up, and I have a recommendation for that later on for topic
Okay.
for next month.
And I will say that the things that we have seen, a lot of them was a matter of clarification of what's currently happening, and a couple of others we needed to make a few little tweaks, and they were very easily done, and we had absolutely no kickback. We have our Financial Training Committee, which consists of member Vanderpool, myself, and Jennifer Eustachian. Currently, we have a video or a presentation that we were ready to put on the website. Mr. Giannetti suggested that we probably ought to cut that into 2, maybe 3 pieces, make it a little less information for the public to swallow, anybody who's coming into our website and looking at that. And with that comment having been made, I'm going to suggest that to the other members. Mr. Vanderpool isn't here tonight. He was kind of the driving force in putting this together. I think he's the appropriate person to suggest where we might separate that, and I'd ask him, and we'll make contact with him. If Nicole, if you could just email him and ask him if there's a time that works when we could talk about that, or he could give back the information to the subcommittee members, and we could probably get that separated out to present back in our next meeting.
Yeah, I'd suggest, Mr. Chair, that when that video is made in the 3 vignettes, if it's cut into 3 or 2 or whatever it is, that we review it as a committee, and then we put it before the city council.
Right.
I don't think it should go directly to the website until the council's had their say on it.
Correct.
Since they requested this.
Yes, I would like for our committee to see it in the pieces on the future agenda, and then of course we would send it to the council for presentation or for adopting it, or if they needed and wanted something else done. The next subcommittee is our CFD training and frequently asked questions, and those members are Councilman Fenn, Mr. Vanderpool, and City Manager Parton. There's only one of those members currently present.
Mr. Cooley, I can give a report on that.
Great, if you do that, please.
Okay, so Mr. Vanderpool and I and staff did meet. We got Mr. Vanderpool up to date as to what we had discussed in a previous meeting. And our goal with staff is to build an internal website that will cover the CFD information, and also with a mapping tool as well. And with that, staff will put that together as, for, I guess, for lack of a better term, a back page, an internal website that we can look at and review, give comments on to staff, and then when we think the committee is ready to have that published, bring that back to the Finance and Audit Committee for a final review, and then work on then publishing it out. So I think with that, with the financial training, it'd probably follow that similar process with the website. Our goal for staff to get that done, and our next meeting to review that, will be held on March 10th. And so that's our current plan for that for now. So thank you.
All right, I believe our next meeting is on March 14th, so hopefully we can look forward to a little short presentation on that as far as where you're at and where you're going from there.
Very good, thanks.
Then that moves us up to the Reserve Policy Committee, and we have exactly one member on that committee. And that member is excused from tonight's meeting. Do we have any other members that might
No,
feel comfortable serving on that?
Chair, she's here. Member Newman.
I'm here.
Oh, my notes are wrong. I'm sorry. I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, there's been nothing on the subject, so I think when something comes up, I think that's another ad hoc one, I believe that is. And I guess I'll need to speak with someone to kind of fill me in on the topic when that comes up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if and the rest of the committee is open to it, I would like to volunteer to help with that committee, the Reserve
Okay.
Policy Committee.
this is pretty informal, and I don't think we need any kind of a vote or anything, just a willingness to serve, and unless somebody objects to it, we'll add you to that subcommittee. Any objections to
Thank you.
that? Okay, that moves us to the Calpers Liability Committee. And the members on that are myself, Mr. Genetti, and Ms. Eustace. I don't recall anything we've really done on that. We've got a little bit popping out with the policy, the investment policy that was moved up to the city council tonight. But I'm not sure exactly where this subcommittee is going. Mr. Genetti or Ms. Eustace, do you have any comments?
No, just that we are kind of working on it right now, as you mentioned, with the PARS account and 115 trust and addressing our funded liability. So I believe we're moving in the right direction. And when everyone has time to meet, I'll be happy to update you as to where we are at that point.
Excellent.
That's what I think, Jennifer, we need is now with this new PARS program that we're going to have, we ought to see where we stand as we execute that and how we progress.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I think we're rolling along on that. The long-term financial sustainability, again, we have one member, and that's Mr. Garcia. Any input from anybody on where that subcommittee is going, or if they've been able to establish any kind of goals or concepts?
That was one that wasn't one of the first priorities. So,
Right.
and I think Mr. Garcia is new to it. So we would have to brief him up and see if we're ahead on the other 4 projects ahead of it before we maybe jump into another one.
Right, and I think that's where we're sitting, and that's appropriate. And the bond accountability, I think, or the bond accountability is in that same status and that same position. Mr. Lee Masters,
Yes.
is that what you understand, or you jumped into it?
Yeah, actually, Director Eustace and I met briefly in January and discussed what we thought the goals of it should be, which is largely to kind of map out what the process is to ensure that the city is accountable for the bond payments, that the payments are sent to where they need to be sent. She provided a draft of an outline for a paper describing all of that. Jennifer, if you want to provide any color to that, you add some context for that draft. My guess is that we should have something ready for the full committee by the next meeting. Jennifer, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just I think it's a good draft. It explains the process of how the payments are made. Also where you can go to verify that they have been made within our financial audits. We have information there, a website you can go to check to get bond documents and disclosure reports. And so that's all lined within the report. Once we get that finalized, we can definitely bring it back to the committee.
Yeah, I think that covers the subcommittee updates, and that moves us down to future agenda items. I think for a future agenda item, we should have the subcommittee updates basically be a standing part of all of our meetings, and there may be stuff, there may not be stuff, but I think we should touch on all of these each meeting and see what's happening and see if there's something absolute that needs to be done in the interim. Any other future agenda items that anyone would like to bring up? Propose?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
In examining the warrants every week, I noticed we are using a new system in-house to pay some things called, I think, Jennifer, it's virtual pay.
Invoice pay.
Invoice pay. And it's kind of like automatic, and just everybody that's using it, they go through, and I just think it might be good either to have a review of how that works and what the internal controls are on that to assure that the payments or the items that are purchased and the payments are justified. I kind of asked, finance when I saw it, but I think other people would see that and would kind of wonder, because you may get about 30, 40, 50 lines that are all under that one heading, and in total maybe $100,000 or 70,000. And the individual things are there, but just to understand that process.
Right. It's an AP automation service. So yeah, you
Okay.
could.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense and it needs to be done. Who would you suggest doing that? Either,
Well,
either one of
I'm thinking Jennifer could just detail what it is to us, at the meeting, present what it is briefly. I think it might be something later on that we, as the audit subcommittee, may want to look at.
Okay, Jennifer, you have the time and willingness to do that for us for the next meeting?
Yeah, I could put together a staff report for you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Anything
Jennifer.
else anyone would like to see on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, if we could add for the next meeting, the presentation of our draft report on the bond accountability.
Okay. And we can add that as a separate item as opposed to just an update from the subcommittee, because you're going to have an actual report.
Yes, sir.
And we will do that, and if you'll get that to the clerk's office in time that they can add it to the packet, that would help tremendously.
Thank you.
All right, with no other future agenda items, then we'll move on to the meeting review by our treasurer.
Okay. I'm not going to go by the review of the finances, but we are tracking well both on the general budget and also for the wastewater. We're ahead for different reasons and all that. With the ups and downs, we're in a very positive position. The PARS account, we need to have the investment policy approved by the city council. And it's specific to that. It's not the same investment policy as Jennifer answered my question and Mr. Fens, that it's because it's a long-term investment. It has some other little tweaks to the investment policy. And then we reviewed all our committees, and I'm not going to go through them all, but I have the notes here on what the committees had. And I think the key things are that we will have a presentation on these videos coming up, and then the process will be to go to the council. And also the bond issue will have a report next time. Otherwise, there's various degrees of movement here. Oh, and excuse me, the CFD Q&A type thing will also have a report for the next meeting where they are.
Okay, and let's move on to the finance director's comments, if any.
Yeah, I was just going to update that I believe hopefully the finance department will be fully staffed by next month. We have someone in background, and we are going pretty good with budget. Department budgets are due at the end of this week. We will be reviewing those and meeting with city manager in March on those budgets. And other than that, it's just busy season. And if you have any questions for us, feel free to let us know. Thank you.
Okay, that brings the agenda has been covered. It's time to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for moving through this and showing up on this holiday. And that makes our time at 6:31 p.m. We are adjourned with the next meeting scheduled for Monday, March 14th at 6 p.m. Same location, same process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye.
Job.